Set in a time when any form of prayer is provocation. Today, the moment we pray, the moment we don't pray, why we don't pray, all of these are reasons for somebody or the other getting provoked somewhere or the other. So that led me to look at how and why and whether we do have a tradition of prayer as provocation. And then I realized that Ninda Stuti has always been with us. This idea of being so close to the Lord that you can even make fun of the deity, you can provoke the deity into becoming closer to you, you can challenge the deity, you can even call the deity names, it doesn't really matter. All of it is taken to be some form of devotion or the other. The ancients seemed to have lived very comfortably with it. So there was Sakya Nayanar among the 63 devotees of Shiva, Arvati Mover, as we all know, whose time period ends with the 8th century. Sakya Nayanar was a Buddhist, and somewhere along the line he discovered that he could be better off as a Shaivite. But he didn't want to change his clothes, so he remained a Buddhist from outside, but he decided that he would pray to Lord Shiva. Now, how was he going to do it so that his Buddhist friends were not going to know? Every day he would take 2 stones and throw them on the Shivalinga, and then he would go and eat his food. And every stone that he threw, 1 mark was left on the Shivalinga. He interpreted that to be his devotion and that it had had an impact on the Lord. And so every day he would take 2 stones and throw them on the deity and then go and have his food. There comes a day when he is sitting down to eat, when he realizes he has not thrown the 2 stones at the deity. So he goes and picks up the 2 stones when Lord Shiva appears and says, "Enough is enough, come along with me," and he gives him salvation. So such a person is considered to be one of the greatest devotees of Shiva. He only threw stones at the deity. Now today, you know, if you put chappal garlands on a deity or whatever it is, immediately there will be riot, section 144. All of these things had been done by our ancients at some time in the form of devotion. Now the story of the Arvati Mover itself takes its documentation from Sundaramurti Nayanar. Sundaramurti is the last of the 63 devotees of Shiva. And when Shiva came to him, they had a terrific argument with each other. And Sundaramurti addressed Shiva, who had come as an old man, as "you lunatic, Pitta." And then later on he understands who Shiva was, he becomes his devotee. And Shiva says, "You have to sing about me every day." And he says, "What do I do? Where do I begin? What is the first word that I am going to sing of you?" And Shiva says, "You called me Pitta, you called me a lunatic. Begin with that word." So that is how Sundaramurti Nayanar's poetry begins, "Pitta Pirai Sudi." So, "Oh lunatic, oh crazy fellow, you with the moon on your head." And so from then on, this definition of Shiva as a crazy character remains as a continuing trope in Bhakti poetry. So when Manikavachakar describes his devotion, he asks, if people come and ask me, "Whose devotee are you?" unless you shed your grace on me, I will make you the laughing stock of the whole world. He's telling Shiva this. And how will I make you the laughing stock of the whole world? By saying, "You are that loony who swallowed the poison, who went and ripped open the elephant and then wore it as your garment. Then you went and danced in the crematoria. That kind of a crazy character you are. That is what I am going to describe you." And then in another poem, which Ashwath will now sing, I will explain it after we have heard it from Ashwath.
Check, check. தந்தது உன் தன்னை தந்தது உன் தன்னை கொண்டது என் தன்னை தந்தது உன் தன்னை கொண்டது என் தன்னை சங்கரா ஆர்கொலோ சதுரர் அந்தம் ஒன்றும் இல்லா ஆனந்தம் பெற்றேன். The monitors are off, I can't hear myself. அந்தம் ஒன்றும் இல்லா ஆனந்தம் பெற்றேன். யாது நீ பெற்றது ஒன்று என் பால் சிந்தையே சிந்தையே கோயில் கொண்ட எம்பெருமான் எம்பெருமான் திருப்பெருந்துறை உரை சிவனே திருப்பெருந்துறை உரை சிவனே எந்தையே ஈஷா உடல் இடம் கொண்டாய் யான் இதற்கு இளன் ஓர் கைமாறே.
So, Manikavachakar says, I gave myself to you, you gave yourself to me. Who is the cleverer of the two among us? You decide yourself. Because I got everlasting bliss by surrendering myself to you. What did you get in return? You got nothing out of this whole thing. Therefore, I am the very intelligent. Our Chaturar, who is the cleverer among the two of us? I am the cleverer, you are the nutcase who didn't get anything out of this. It's a win-lose situation as far as you are concerned. So this is this trope of the Lord being a relatively dim-witted character we will come back to. But in the meantime, what about Andal in Nachiyar Tirumozhi? Andal in Nachiyar Tirumozhi and Andal in Tirupavai seem to be two entirely different people altogether. Now, Andal in Nachiyar Tirumozhi is this bold woman who is stridently going out and seeking the Lord. And towards the end of the series, her frustration at the fact that the Lord has not come unto her becomes more and more intense. And in one verse, she says that when he comes down to see me, when that highway brigand comes down to see me, what is the purpose of these two breasts if they have not been touched by him? I will pluck them out from their root and fling them onto his face. This is her expression of her frustration at the fact that Vishnu has not come unto her. And then she says, Yashoda is going around lamenting, what kind of a child have I brought up? There is no lawlessness in this world, and he is a classic instance of that kind of lawlessness. That he has not been able to come here to hear my devotion. And therefore, when he comes, what is the apt punishment that has to be given to him? He should be tied tightly to my firm breasts and be made to stay there. That is the kind of punishment that he deserves. So they are talking about punishing the Lord, which is not something that would be even acceptable in the current context of whatever is happening. We then proceed onwards. We look at what happens. See, this is old Bhakti poetry. If you look at it, we are looking at the 7th century, 8th century, 9th century. When we are looking at the Nayanmars, we are looking at the Alvars. Now, the whole concept of Ninda, or, provoking the deity into paying attention to the devotee itself, takes time, and we find that by the 15th and the 16th centuries, it firms up and becomes a more refined art form with a lot of takings from the various stories, the various Puranas that have been, by the time become very popular. We also find that the women deities are never subjected to Ninda. Even if they are, it is invariably in the context of their male consorts that we find that they are questioned. So, for instance, Appaya Dikshitar, the 17th century composer, when he writes a verse on Apita Kuchambal, who is the goddess at Tiruvannamalai, he writes what is called the Apita Kuchamba Stavam, and in that he asks her that if it had not been for you, who do you think is going to go and pay their respects to your husband? It is only because you are present along with him that we all have the courage or the guts to even come there and to meet up with him. Kante visham vishamucho bhujagaha kaparde parshvecha bhutapatayaha pramatascha bhimaha shoni shalescha upaspritya bhajeta kova nasyat tava amba savidhe yadi sannidhanam. O mother, poison in the throat, poison exuding serpents in the braided hair, fearsome ghosts all around him. If it were not for your presence, who do you think would even go to Tiruvannamalai and pray to that Lord? It's only because you are there along with him that we are able to do so. So this is Appaya Dikshitar sometime in the 17th century. Now prior to him, at the height of the Vijayanagar Empire, which flourished between the 14th and the 16th centuries, we had the Dasakuta, the Dasas, Purandara Dasa, Kanakadasa, so many others. They all lived in the Vijayanagar Empire and they went around singing the praises of the Lord. So if you looked at Manika Vachakar saying that, I surrendered myself unto you, you surrendered yourself to me, who is the cleverer among the two? Let us see what Purandara Dasa has to say in the same context and in almost identical terms.
ನಿನ್ನಂತ ತಂದೆ ಎನಗುಂತು ನಿನಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿನ್ನಂತ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಎನಗುಂತು ನಿನಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿನ್ನಂತ ದೊರೆಯೂ ಎನಗುಂತು ನಿನಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಎನಗುಂತು ನಿನಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀನೇ ಪರದೇಶಿ ನಾನೇ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ, ನೀನೇ ಪರದೇಶಿ ನಾನೇ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ, ನಿನ್ನರಸಿ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ಎನಗೆ ತಾಯಿಯುಂಟು, ಎನಗಿದ್ದ ತಾಯಿ ತಂದೆ, ಎನಗಿದ್ದ ತಾಯಿ ತಂದೆ, ನಿನಗೆರು ತೋರೋ ಶ್ರೀ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ, ಶ್ರೀ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ.
So, Ninnanta Swami Yanagundu Ninagilla. I have a Lord, you don't have anybody. Ninnanta Dorayu. I have a master in you, you don't have anybody. I have a mother who is your wife Lakshmi. Who is your father? Who is your mother? Therefore, I am the man with everything. I am Swadesi, you are a Paradesi, you have nothing. In another composition, he says, Nanike Badavanu, Nanike Paradesi. I am the pimp, I am the Paradesi, I have nothing, etc., etc. But here, he goes exactly opposite. You are the Paradesi, you've got nothing to show for yourself. Whereas, look at me, I am full of worldly riches, I have got everybody here along with me, I don't need anything in life. Now, if Purandara Dasa is talking like this, what about his illustrious contemporary Kanakadasa? So, Kanakadasa is going to Tirupati, and in one Bandevaya, he makes fun of everything that we associate with Tirupati today, starting with the selling of prasadams. So he says there are 56 items over here, all assembled and kept for a price. So is there nothing that you will give free? So you are a Shetty, you are a money lender. Govinda Shetty, Tirumala Timma Shetty. We have come to see you because you charge interest on everything. And not only that, you have kept an old red color pot in your house, which you have broken to pieces and you are distributing that as kunkumam to everybody. Even that you don't want to spend money on. That kind of a money lender you are. What kind of a deity? We have all come to see you at this point of time. Now, you remember Andal is talking about him as a highway brigand, as the fact that, his mother was lamenting. Purandara Dasa, Hela Bharade, is it not proper, mother, that you should have controlled your son? Why should he be so badly behaved that, we are churning butter, he is coming here and he's stealing it, we are walking down the street, he's misbehaving with us. So, should you not have brought up your son in a better fashion, such a worthless fellow? So, this is Purandara Dasa going back to looking at Krishna and all that he is playing. Now, the Vijayanagar Empire, as we all know, collapses in 1565. And after that, we have a long period of what is known as the Nayaks, the viceroys of the erstwhile Vijayanagar Empire. They all break up and then they become independent rulers themselves. Now, at that point of time in Tamil Nadu, you had the three great rulers who were the Tanjavur Nayak, the Senji Nayak, and the Madurai Nayak. Now, all three of them invite a great composer called Kshetraya. Now, Kshetraya in his Meruva Padam actually lists out the number of songs that he composed at the court of the Sultan of Golconda, at the Nayak's court in Senji, at the Tanjavur Nayak's court, at the Thirumalai Nayak's court in Madurai, everyone, he lists the number of compositions that he has composed. Now, today, we consider all of these to be love poems. The Padam is essentially a love poem written in 90% of the time from the woman's point of view, intriguingly 10% of the time from the man's point of view also. So he has, played fair. And some of the compositions in today's context we will not even be able to stomach. So we will leave that aside because it borders on what you would call as pedophilia and things like that. But that is a subject for a different context altogether. But today, in traditional analysis of Kshetraya Padams, we would always say that all these romantic genre poems, beginning with Jayadeva so many years ago in the 12th century, they are all dealing with the soul yearning for union with the Supreme. Now, sometimes we find that the soul, after having united with the Supreme, is not happy and wants to come back. So, there is one composition where the Nayika, after having gone around the corner and done some hanky-panky with her lover who is Muva Gopala, is not satisfied and tells him, my husband is far better, I am going back home. So there are compositions like this also in Kshetraya. Now I have a few favorites which I keep going back to and laughing over periodically. And one of them is Vetaki Terapoyi Veru Vellanki Hitavaina Chelulika Nevaru Vaddanu Leru. That is, please go and find me a route or something. I don't have anybody over here who will come to my help at this point of time. My husband has been away for a long time, and you came and held me and made love to me. Now I have missed a period, the food is not very tasty anymore, but I have to get a root or something to abort this child that is in my stomach. Now in my womb, go and get me a root or something, go and get me a root or something. This is how it goes. The final verse, like a lizard falling from the ceiling, my husband returned home last night, and we made love. Therefore, all is well, I will bear your baby in his name. This is Kshetraya. Now, Kshetraya goes a stage further, and here he is talking about a woman who is having her periods and is inviting Muva Gopala to come and make love to her. And she says, Cheragu Masi Unnani Yochana Seyu Uddura Sami. Just because I am having my periods, you don't have to think anything, just come along, it doesn't really matter. Arasikula Tapu Shastramulu Nijamunu Anuchu Namma Vodura. Don't believe these rules that have been made by these fellows who are arasikula. That is, they don't understand, they don't appreciate the finer things of life. Don't believe the shastras that these people have laid, you come along. It doesn't really matter. So these are the kind of verses that the Jivatma was singing to the Paramatma to unite with it as far as Kshetraya's Padams were concerned. So a careful reading of Kshetraya will make us stand the whole idea of devotion and piety on its head and look at something else that was happening at that time, the kind of life that people were leading. Now the Nayak period gets over, thereafter the Marathas have come, and then we find that there is a resurgence of what is known as Tamil poetry in classical music. And you have people like Marimutta Pillai, Muthu Tandavar, Arunachala Kavirayar, Gopala Krishna Bharati, and several others who take forward this whole idea of devotion. And that is when, in my opinion, we've looked at Kannada poetry, we looked at Sanskrit, we looked at one verse in Sanskrit, we looked at Old Tamil, we looked at Telugu through Kshetraya. And now when you go back to Tamil and you find that this concept of esal, that is insulting, becomes a real fine art. And entire compositions are written with essentially two principal characters and sometimes a third character. The two principal characters are Shiva and Vishnu. They are the two main deities who are subjected to extensive Ninda Stuti. And in that, Marimutha Pillai was really a past master. So Marimutha Pillai says, Yenneramum oru kaalai thooki ulla vagai edaya. Why are you forever lifted one leg and kept it like that? So this is in Nataraja in Chidambaram. So Podnadar potrum tollai. Is it because the gods are forever wanting to come and touch it that you have lifted it like that, so that nobody will be able to touch it any longer? And then Yekkiya Nerippavika Takkan Veetil Nadando. Is it because you walked in the sacrificial fire of Daksha that you burnt your foot? And that is why you have lifted it and kept it. Yamanai Udaita Bodu Edir Shulukku Eri Nondo. When you kicked Yama, when Markandeya, he came and he prayed to you and he hugged your Sivalinga, then Yama came, you kicked him. And therefore, you sprained your foot at that point of time, therefore you've got it like this. Shikkanave Piditi Chandrane Nilathinil Teita Bodo. That is, in Daksha's sacrifice, he takes the moon god for having attended the sacrifice and rubs him on the ground. So he says, is it because of that? Then he says, is it because you swallowed the poison? Unda nanju udalukul uri kalvali vando. Have you swallowed this poison and has it come down to your foot and has it paralyzed it? Is it because you were dancing for that snake and that tiger all the time, Pambu Puli, that is Vyagrapada and Patanjali, that you got so tired and you have lifted your leg? Now this is the common verse. The first verse is invariably sung, but there are two other verses. They get even better. So it says that with your wife on one side, were you trying to climb onto your bull and then you fell down and sprained your whole... It's almost like a modern man going doubles on a motorcycle, That same picture you're able to get. With your wife in one half, you tried to jump onto the bull, you lost your thing, and then you fell down and you sprained your foot. This is what has happened to you. Now, Marimutha Pillai also had an illustrious contemporary in Papa Vinasa Mudaliyar. Papa Vinasa Mudaliyar specialized in Ninda Stuti. Nadamadi Tirinda Umakku Kal, you walked all over the place. Now what has happened to your foot? Why has it been uplifted like this? So this is one of them. Then in Thiruvarur, because this is Chidambaram where the Lord is Nataraja, in Thiruvarur the Lord is Somaskanda, where you cannot see anything but his face. The rest of the body of the deity will be forever kept hidden with flowers, and even when they anoint the deity, they will put a covering on it so that nobody has ever seen the rest of the body of Tyagesa. Only on 2 times in the year, on one occasion the left foot and on another occasion the right foot will be displayed. For the rest of the year it will only be the face. Muhattai Kati Deham Maraithe. That is, you showed your face, the rest of your body you have hidden. I am sure there is some blemish in your body. And we have come so many times to find it. So when did we come? We came in the evening when there won't be many people. But you wore such beautiful earrings that we kept looking at it. We never looked at your body. When you were bathing, we came along just so that we will be able to take a look. But you covered yourself completely, and so we could not see it. Then when you were going out in procession, we thought we will be able to, we came and we bent low so that we could see. But that time you danced and danced and danced and you went away, so we could not keep time with you. So what exactly? There is something wrong with you at some place. Now this whole concept of Ninda then extends to asking Parvati, what did you see in this man that you had to get married to him? As Kamala Murthy would say in her Harikatha, I believe they asked Parvati, how many sovereigns of gold did your husband give you? And she says, no sovereigns, he gave me plenty of serpents. So that is Kamala Murthy's Harikatha. So we have Gopala Krishna Bharati's Peyandi Tanai, Vendi, Endi Mayal Kondai, this ghostly figure. Why did you fall in love with him? What did you find in him?
Check. Peyandi Tanai Kandu Nee Endi Mayal Kondai Pengalu Kalagamodi Peyandi Tanai Kandu Nee Endi Mayal Kondai Pengalu Kalagamodi Mayandi சுடலையில் வாழ்வாண்டி காளியுடன் சூடாடி வாதாடி வழக்காடி திரிவாண்டி பேயாடி தன்னை கண்டு நீ ஏண்டி மையல் கொண்டாய் பெண்களுக்கழகாமோடி சுந்தரர்க்கு தூது நடந்தவனி வந்தாண்டி சுந்தரர்க்கு தூது நடந்தவனி வந்தாண்டி தும்புரு நாரதர் பாட்டை கேட்டாண்டி ஆசை வந்தால் உன்னை தழுவ வருவாண்டி ஆசை வந்தால் உன்னை தழுவ வருவாண்டி சமயம் வந்தால் ஒரு காலை தூக்குவாண்டி பேயாண்டி தன்னை கண்டு நீ ஏண்டி மையல் கொண்டாய் பெண்களுக்கழகாமோ.
So, one consistent accusation against Shiva is that in answer to his devotee Sundaramurthi's prayer, he went to the courtesan Paravai Nachiyar's house as a messenger. So, you know, you walked up to Paravai's house. In another composition, it says her threshold was so narrow that you tripped over it, which is why you've got one foot lifted up all the time and so on. So, this kind of accusation, Shiva has had a lot to bear. But this is not yesterday or today from the time of Appar. Appar says, you have a very difficult private life because you put one woman in your hair, and when she heard the sound of the water falling on your hair, your wife got angry with you. So you had to sing Samaveda in order to please her. When that was not enough, you had to dance also, and that is how you had to satisfy the other woman. So this is Appar talking about Shiva. Now we go back to Andhra, where many years before the 21st century, someone else realized that building a temple for Rama is not the best option for getting public adulation. And that was Bhadrachalam Ramadasa. Bhadrachalam Ramadasa goes to Bhadrachalam, finds a dilapidated temple, and then he decides that he is going to renovate the temple. He spends his own money. Then when his money gets over, he then begins to spend the state's money. Embezzlement of public funds. And finally, he is arrested and he is put into prison. That is when he begins composing a whole lot of songs accusing Rama for having been unfair, when all along it was he who had stolen the public funds. So he says, Ayyayo Nivanti Anyaya Devamu Neyyada Ganaya. I have never seen a more unfair Lord than you. So this is his accusation against Rama. Then he says, Parama Drohivi Ninnu. You are such a Drohi, traitor. You took everything from me, but you could not get me released from this prison. Now the best one is in this song called Ikshvaku Kula. He says, you know this jewel that you are wearing on your head. Kaliki Turai Niku Pulupuga Chesi Ramachandra Neevu Kulukutu Tirigeda Vevarabba Sommani Ramachandra. You are walking around showing off all this golden jewelry yourself. Where do you think all this came from? Me Tandri Dasaratha Maharaja Pettenna Ramachandra. Your father Dasaratha gave you or what? Next line even better. Lekame Mama Janaka Maharaju Pampena Ramachandra. Your father-in-law Ramachandra gave you. Janaka gave you. No, I gave it. So now you come and rescue me. Then the next line. Having done all this Sarkaru Paikamu, Trinamugan Enchaku Ramachandra, don't treat public funds as something that can be taken lightly, Rama. Come and give me the money and pay it back. Now if this is Bhadrachalam Ramadasa trying to cajole the Lord, Tyagaraja also says, Adigi Sukhamu. Who has got happiness by going after you? Nobody. Everybody has come to some form of sorrow after praying to you. And in his composition, he gives a whole set of examples. We'll only cite the first two.
Adigi sukhamulevvaranubhavinchirira Nilnadigi sukhamulevvaranubhavinchirira Adi Mulama Rama Sadala ni pati mira koti surya sadalani papati mira koti surya sarvabhauma sara sakshasa guna sarvabhauma sara sakshasa guna sarvabhauma sara sakshasa guna nilnadigi സുഖമൂലവരനുഭവിൽ ചിരിരാടികി സുഖമൂ ആശ്രയിൽ വരമടികിന സീത അടവിക്ക് പോനായേ അസരഹരണ രകസീഷ്ടമടുക അസരഹരണ രകസീഷ്ടമടുക അപ്പൂടെ മൂക്കു പോയേ ഓരാമ അപ്പൂടെ മൂക്കു പോയേ രാമനിൽ നടികി സുഖമൂലവരനുഭവിൽ ചിരിരാനിൽ ആദിമൂലമാ രാമ.
So Sita prayed to you and you shunted her off to the forest. Shurpanakha fell in love with you and she lost her nose in the process. So this way nobody has ever succeeded by praying unto you. This is Tyagaraja's view about Rama, who is his favorite deity. So this entire trope of this provoking the Lord through prayer moves on to cinema thereafter. By the time movies begin to talk in the 1930s, 1940s, you find slowly songs are coming in that genre as well. And in that, we find that there are compositions like Kavi Pradeep in Nastik in 1952-53. देख तेरी संसार की हालत क्या हो गई भगवान कितना बदल गया इंसान. That is, just see in what way your world has changed, O Lord, how people have become different. This is set in the partition riots and how people's behavior has become more like animals than anything else. 3 years later, in the movie Railway Platform, Sahir Ludhianvi would compose देख तेरी इंसान भगवान की हालत क्या हो गई इंसान कितना बदल गया भगवान. So, oh human, look how God has changed in these few years. He has become so commercial and money-minded. And at that time, this same tune, the first one sung by Kavi Pradeep himself, the second one composed by Sahir Ludhianvi and sung by Mohammad Rafi, was a great hit and was hugely accepted by everybody. 55 years later, when the song is put up on YouTube, you see the comments that are down below. Why is it not on Allah? First thing. Second thing, 2 Muslims have sung this. One Muslim has composed it, another Muslim has sung it. And I prefer the old Pradeep composition. I don't like this composition. These are the kind of analysis that we have got into today. We are not looking at it as some kind of an expression that's about it of the frustrations and feelings of the people of that point of time. What is very clear is that the agamic form of worship does not allow for Ninda Stuti. Whereas Bhakti very clearly brings Ninda into its part, because it is through this kind of familiarity with the deity that you are able to take to going unto the deity through a pathway of devotion. So if you look at the abhangs, for instance, the Marathi abhangs, Pandariche Bhut Mote, there is a ghost in Pandari, in Pandarpur, which swallows everybody who comes there and they can never come back. Because once you have gone to Pandarpur, you have become a devotee of Pandarpur. And the last line, it says, Tuka went only once to Pandarpur and he never came back. Therefore, Pandariche Bhut Mote. So, Vittal in Pandarpur is a ghost. And that is the ghost that is Bhakti. Once we have got hold of that, there is really no other reason for any other form of worship. That seems to be the message that we are getting from all these great composers as far as the Bhakti movement is concerned. What current times will make out of it is something that I leave to open interpretation, and I will not get into that. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, we are open to questions, if any. We save your time also. Yes, please.
No, just for academic interest, have you come across instances in other religions where in the Bible or
Never
this kind
looked
of
at them.
Ninda Stuti is there?
Never looked at them. My interest is only in the classical art of Carnatic music and all that goes into it. I only look at it from that point of view.
Right, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for this absolutely lovely, wonderful session for this evening. Sriram V with Ashwath Narayanan. Thank you so much.